Hi, I'm Devin Ponce, and this is my website on the impact of open source software. I made this website by hand by coding mostly in HTML, a little bit in CSS, and there's about one use of JavaScript in this entire website. I will now show you an example of what my code looks like on this website. As you can see, URI's computer science department paid for web hosting from a web host called HostGator. Every computer science 101 student gets their own web server. And with it, I was able to code this entire website by hand. I'll show you an example of the code from my cover page. Here you can see some JavaScript, HTML, and a little bit of CSS, which I used in body HTML for the cover page and a separate style sheet for the rest of the pages. There are some images I edited myself using Pixlr website, which is basically an image editing software that's free to use, much like Photoshop. I edited this GIF with it. I also made this background along with this banner and logo at the top of all the other pages. This is obviously the home page of the website. It features a table of contents along with a brief abstract which goes over the impact of open source software and what you expect to find on the website. Open source software is software with its code openly available for the public to edit and critique in the name of improvement. With the code being open to the public, anyone at any time can go in and help fix bugs or glitches in the code and even add new features to the software. Moving on to the next page, we have the purpose page. And like the title would suggest, it basically goes over the purpose of open source software. And the purpose of open source software is to enable and promote collaboration and volunteering on developing software. This is done by making the source code available to everyone, and it enables companies and entrepreneurs to cut labor costs, since most open source coding is done on a volunteer basis. The next page is the effects and impacts page, and this goes over some of the impacts open source software has had on culture, society, and the economy. Some of the beneficial effects of open source software include the rise of collaboration and organizations which thrive off volunteer work in order to better the community. In the video below, a student discusses what he believes to be the impact open source software has left.
One of the biggest impacts of open source programming is increased innovation. Anyone, anywhere could edit the code to software and make real-time improvements. It has also increased collaborations between businesses as they work together completing projects together, which can have huge impacts on social issues. Speaking of collaboration, here we see multiple students collaborating together on a Google document at the same time in real time, much in the same way open source programming works.
Now, as you can see on this graph to the right here, the number of open source projects developed for Android actually quintupled from the year 2010 to 2012, and it has in general lowered programming costs for some of the larger companies as well. Some of the disadvantages could include longer development times for software, since much of the work is volunteer-based, and it could also lead to some dead unfinished projects, as many times groups of programmers either lose interest or time and they can't finish the project. One impact open source software has had on society is it led to certain collaborative organizations. Oops. One impact open source software has had on society is it has led to certain collaborative volunteer organizations which work and thrive to better their community and society. They complete projects that, for example, can help the homeless or help those affected by natural disasters. And one field, besides the obvious computer fields that open source software can have an impact in, it's a financial field, specifically trading on Wall Street. And this video below goes over the gradual switch on Wall Street from proprietary or paid software to open source, which is usually free software.
Hi, I'm Carrie Massaro, Editor-in-Chief of Advanced Trading. For years, Wall Street firms have been proprietary with their technology, but today, because of the harsh economic environment, they're considering using open source technology in the front office. Today, I'm here with Larry Tabb, who is founder of the Trend, and he'll discuss this trend. So Larry, is open source really a cheaper alternative, or are there hidden costs?
Thanks, Carrie, for having me on this segment. Is open source cheaper than traditional software? In certain ways, yes. In certain ways, maybe not. Certainly, the code is less expensive. If you can download it off the internet and it doesn't really cost anything, that is better than writing a check for the software. On the downside, generally with open source, there still needs to be a significant amount of integration work. There needs to be, generally, you're going to want to tinker with it and tailor the code to fit into your organization, and there needs to be some sort of support model to make sure that the software is maintained over a period of time. And so that's generally why you're starting to see business models revolving around open source. So if you think about it, how can anybody make money from free software? They're not actually making the money from the free software. They're making money from the support arrangement that moves forward. Now, is that less expensive than buying the code and paying for maintenance over time? It really depends upon the robustness of the code, how many people have tinkered with it and built it, how robust is it. In some cases, yeah, it can be significantly cheaper, but if you're on the cutting edge of things, chances are not everything has been debugged and not everything is working as smoothly as something that you're going to buy in a package. The other issue is who stands behind it and how's it going to be maintained, and if it performs poorly, what's your management going to think when you tell them, oh well, I downloaded it off the internet instead of going with a reputable vendor.
Besides possible cost savings, what are some of the other benefits to using open source technology?
On the benefit side, and it's certainly true with more widely used open source technology. What happens is the open source community, comes in, looks at it, shakes it out, debugs it, puts fixes in, changes it, republishes it. It gets integrated in with the general code, and overall the turnover cycles are more frequent, and hence hopefully the software becomes more robust. So that's really the benefit, I think, to a certain amount of open source.
There are a couple of products that are gaining popularity, such as Esper, R, and Eclipse. Do you see these products gaining traction in capital markets, and if so, in what areas?
Well, I think now, certainly in the environment that we're in now in the capital markets, it's tough to get these firms to write a check for anything. So to the extent that they can, they still have to solve their problems. They still need to get what they need done during the day. They still need to be productive. So I think what you're seeing now is an embracing more of open source technologies to basically, put them in a sandbox, play with them, see if they work, see if they help productivity, and then try and use them. So, as well as smaller firms are much more readily open to using open source than the larger big banks. There are also issues around licensing that are become very critical. So, if you're a 3-person garage startup, it's not like that somebody's going to come and sue you for somebody leveraging licensed code within an open source environment. But if you're a large financial organization with deep pockets, you become a much bigger target. That all of a sudden, if somebody just unknowingly or you not knowing that all of a sudden there's a little piece of code in there that's actually licensed from someone else. That becomes a bigger challenge. So